One. All right, welcome to the latest episode of the Colman Power Organic Fitness Podcast. I have my latest guest here in front of me, John from Loving Oxygen on Instagram. Right, John, say hello to the listeners.
Hello, listeners. How are you all doing? I hope you're all keeping well and breathing deeply.
I suppose I brought John on, being an expert in the field on breath work and both his Wim Hof techniques. And I suppose, John, if you give us a little brief, we call it that elevator pitch of exactly who you are, where you're based, and a little bit about what you do.
All right. Well, I'm based in County Louth, but I do travel around the country. And I'm a qualified Wim Hof instructor. So I don't know if people are familiar with Wim Hof. I'm sure they are. He's blown up on social media in the last while. He's known as the Iceman. And basically he does lots of different feats in the cold. So what I do is I do workshops where I teach people a breathing technique and take them into ice baths. And so an ice bath is a physical and a mental stress, and you learn how to deal with stress by changing and adapting how you breathe. There's lots of health benefits from that. So that's what I do. I'm also a Qigong instructor, which again is, if people have heard of, say, like Tai Chi, it's specific for health. Okay, so that's a very quick synopsis of what I am or what I do.
Right, very good. I'm going to, I suppose, further pinpoint a couple of different things in that. I suppose the Wim Hof technique is coming to, I suppose, into more people's social media at this moment in time. Ice baths or cold showers or sea exposure with the benefits of it. I suppose, what are the benefits of it, firstly, and the fact that why should people do more of it, and what do you do when you have people going to your events?
Okay, well, the Wim Hof method it's actually based on 3 pillars. It's on breath work, cold exposure, and mindset. And Wim's slogan is that brings you happiness, strength, and health for everybody. It's free. You don't need any equipment. You just need to do the breathing, set your mind, and try and get in and out of cold. And the breath technique has its benefits, and the cold has its benefits, and you try and combine the two to amplify, I suppose, the benefits from the method. If we talk specifically just about the breath work, what Wim tries to do, he is working with scientists, so it's scientifically proven that if you do this type of breathing, you produce anti-inflammatory hormones, you increase the alkalinity of your blood, and you actually produce a lot of adrenaline at the same time, even though you're feeling very relaxed. So those 3 things happen just after a couple of rounds of Wim Hof breathing. So it's great for people who sort of suffer from autoimmune diseases, because you're producing these anti-inflammatory hormones. But it's also great for people who suffer from mental issues. We have lots of people who've come to our workshops, even doing the breathing, we've had people crying, releasing internal traumas and stuff like that. That's all part of it. And that's just the breath work alone. Again, if I expand on that, it's 3 rounds of 2 minutes controlled hyperventilation, although they don't like to use that term, but basically you're breathing in and out, in and out, in and out for 2 minutes. And then on the last one, you take a deep breath in, then you exhale, and you hold the exhale for as long as comfortable, plus a little bit more. You just go beyond the comfort zone. And then when you need to breathe, you take a deep breath in and you hold that for 10 seconds roughly. And you do 3 rounds of that. And that's what causes this increase in oxygen levels in the blood, a decrease in carbon dioxide levels in the blood. And what happens is when you do the exhale and you hold the exhale, you start burning up the oxygen. So your oxygen levels drop. And at the same time, you're generating carbon dioxide levels. Now, the trigger to breathe, people think it's the level of oxygen in the blood. It's actually not. It's the level of carbon dioxide. And because you've been doing this breathing in and out, you pushed your carbon dioxide levels lower in your blood than normal. So it takes longer for that trigger point to be reached. So you can see people online holding their breath for a minute, holding their breath for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. As you get more and more practice with this, you'd be able to hold your breath for maybe 3 minutes. And this is what the brain senses, that the oxygen level has dropped, and the brain actually goes into panic mode because you've been holding your breath for so long. You don't oxygen levels drops, brain senses it and says, oh, there's something wrong here. So it starts pumping out adrenaline because it thinks there's danger. And it also thinks maybe there's an injury. So it starts pumping out anti-inflammatory hormones. And that's the hack of the breath work. And that has lots of positive effects on the body. That's just the breath work alone.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll get on to, suppose, the cold water exposure next, but I want to even, suppose, go further in depth about how did you first get into, I suppose, this whole technique of either the breathing and the breath work? And I want you to further expand on that. I know we touched on, I suppose, you had a person in close contact with you that suffered from an illness.
So in 2010, my wife was diagnosed with cancer, and I suppose we went what would be called as an alternative method. She didn't take chemo. She went to Germany and got ozone therapy, and ozone is O3. So pure oxygen is O2. This is O3. So I just started doing research on the benefits of oxygen. Obviously it wasn't ozone, but I knew that oxygen must be good for our bodies. Didn't know too much about it. But in Germany, there's lots of forests. And so I would take Jackie out into the forest and say, let's do our breathing. So not knowing anything about breathing, we'd do just breathe deeply in the fresh air of the forests. And again, just doing my own research. And it took a couple of years, and then I stumbled upon a Vice documentary about Wim Hof. I have 3 sons. I got them and my wife to watch it. And I was blown away by it. I signed up for a 10-week online course. So I'd get up every morning. I do my Wim Hof breathing, do my stretching exercises, and then I'd take a cold shower. And I was blown away by it. It felt really good. In fact, I started running around the garden in my bare feet and shorts, and my youngest son looked out the window and thought I'd lost it. He says, Dad's losing it here. But as he going through a midlife crisis, which I probably was. And anyway, I was just blown away by it and felt really good. And a year later, I went over to Wim's home place. It was called an advanced course. Met Wim for the first time, took an ice bath. And then also there was a scientist there, and he went through the science behind the method. And again, then 2 years later, I went to Poland to become an instructor. It was 2017. At the end of that week, we had to climb, it was called Mount Śnieżka, just in shorts. It was a 5-hour trek, -8 Celsius at the bottom and -13 Celsius at the top. And it was just an amazing week. And I've been practicing it since. How we start our day. I always tell people at the workshops, the hardest thing is not today and the ice bath. That's not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is how to fit this into your daily routine afterwards. We're all the same. We're all human. We say, we'll do it in the evening, but something comes along. We don't. For me, the easiest thing to do was to turn my alarm clock for 20 minutes earlier, straight away do the Wim Hof breathing in bed before I get out of bed, and then I'll get a shower. So I start my day that way, and my wife does as well, separately.
But that's really important, I suppose, to make things priority, whether it's healthy food choices or I suppose it's gratitude journals, which I often recommend to people. Grounding is something that I suppose have taken that approach as well, that there's massive benefits for anti-inflammatories, improved blood flow, and they all come from, I suppose, the breath work and things that you're incorporating into, I suppose, your day courses that you do as well. And those like things such as, whether we find them by chance or by luck, alternative medicines, I suppose, are something definitely coming down the line in, I suppose, in abundance. And is there anything else that you do, I suppose, with yourself or with any people such as your wife, such as maybe those alternative ways of healing that you might want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, well, I suppose when anybody gets a challenge like that, you start looking at we thought, we changed our diet. We thought we are healthy, but we didn't. But you think you are, and I mean, it's not that we're freaks about things. We just try and eat as natural food as possible. Okay, the less processed, the better. So I'd say in simple terms, we don't buy any sauces or anything like that. We make all our own. Not that we're great cooks or anything, like we eat fairly cleanly and fairly simply. So we took stuff out like that. We know that foods, if you actually look at food, say for example, let's say, get someone to buy a Swiss roll, okay? Buy a Swiss roll, eat half of it, put the other half in the cupboard. Check it in 1 month's time. If it's a cream one, the cream will still be soft and there'll be no mold on it. Check it in 4, 5, 6, 7 months later. cream is still soft, no mold on it. That's not right. There's something in that food that's not, I mean, what should happen is the food should absorb oxygen and it should go off. But food now is pumped full of what's called hydrogenated fats and other things that stop the absorption of oxygen because then it has a longer shelf life. So foods like that, lots of foods are pumped full of these hydrogenated fats, which stop the absorption of oxygen. So I look at foods that promote the absorption of oxygen, like your omega-3s, essential fatty acids. You need your hemoglobin levels high. I'm not a scientist. It's sense. You just need to have common sense. Plenty of greens. You need to get your hemoglobin levels high because that carries the oxygen, and you need to have your essential fatty acids because they help transfer the oxygen from the outside of the cells to the inside of the cells. That sort of stuff. We also sleep on a ground sheet, so we sleep connected to the earth. There's a great we call the Earthing movie that's on YouTube, well worth watching, and it shows how we evolved as humans connected to the earth. And for the last 20 years, we're wearing rubber soles, disconnected from the earth. The earth, when we connect ourselves to the earth will produce negative electrons, which decrease inflammation on the body. And so I wouldn't have been a great sleeper. And since we have this 7 years now, this earthing sheet, I'm asleep in 5 minutes. I go straight to sleep now since sleeping on an earth sheet.
Would you ground regularly in the mornings as well, part of your morning routine?
Well, we've been grounded for 8 hours at night because we're sleeping on this earth sheet. So we are grounded. When I do my workshops, I'll take people outside on the grass. I'll talk about earthing because it's new to a lot of people. I'll recommend that they watch the Earthing movie. I'll send them links afterwards. There's the Earthing movie and Grounded, both free on YouTube. They're worth watching. But I will take them out onto the grass and we do this sexy dance called the horse dance. You might have seen it. And I get them to do it in, have you seen it? No?
I have seen it. I'm so glad you mentioned it. It's such a brilliant experience. I love the videos.
Yeah, so that's what we do. But we're getting to do it all in their bare feet. So that they are, and it's an extra little benefit. We talk about the benefits. You can't pile too much on people when they're only there for a couple of hours, but you can drop hints and then send them information afterwards to follow up and look at, scientific studies or some of these online videos that's on YouTube.
What's great is the fact that you're getting them to do it, because sometimes we're information overload and we're lacking that actual practical element of it. And when you're getting people to do the grounding and you're doing the likes of the breathing techniques and the ice baths that you get them to do at your events, I suppose it's getting them to initially start. And that's one of the hardest things, to start a healthy habit and then to continue to do it with that, I suppose, initial hook. With the following that, you're sending out pieces of information and then you start to build healthy habits into your lifestyle, and then it becomes habitual. And when something then is a bit more in your routine, you're much more likely to do it long term.
Exactly. So again, after the workshop, we'll send them what's called a 20-day cold shower challenge. So you have your ordinary shower in the morning, and then the last 15 seconds, you turn it to cold. This is for people who say wouldn't be used to it. So the last 15 seconds, you turn it to cold, and you increase that over 20 days. So at the end of 20 days, hopefully you can do a 1-minute cold shower. Now, I always tell people the first day is bad. The second day is worse, because you know what's coming. So you know what's coming. And so that's also a mind game as well, because you're there, oh no, I'm going to turn this down, and oh, I'm going to go for it. Damn. So it's a mind thing too, but it's so like, now we're touching on the benefits of the cold, which there's many benefits. You actually produce also anti-inflammatory hormones. You actually produce more white blood cells by taking cold showers. So the body reacts by producing more white blood cells, which is amazing. I did have one guy, and I will talk, he came for a private session and he had MS, and his white blood cell neutrophils were always low. And because he gets his blood checked every couple of months. He came and he was doing the Wim Hof method for, I think, about 8 weeks, went and got his blood checked, and he rang me up and says, the doctor said, what are you doing? He says, my white blood cells have gone up. They used to be between 1 and 1.3. I'm not sure what the scale was, and it shot up to 2.8. So he was delighted. And the only thing he changed was he started doing the Wim Hof method every day, and he sleeps on a ground sheet now as well. He bought a ground sheet. So the cold has many benefits. You actually produce more white blood cells. It's also a cardiovascular workout, so it helps the heart, because when you get into the cold, your body wants to protect the core. So what it does, it closes. They've got tiny muscles that control all the veins and the capillaries throughout your extremities, through your arms, fingers, and legs, and they're all activated, and they close off and slow down the blood flow in those extremities, because the body wants to keep the core warm. When you come out, the opposite happens. All those muscles are activated to open up. So you're exercising, you're pumping the guns of these little muscles throughout your whole vascular system, and that is very good for your system. It actually lowers the pressure on your body. So if you had blood pressure, it would actually go down over time, because you're exercising this whole cardiovascular system. So there's loads and loads of benefits. Also, a thing called brown fat. We're born with brown fat. So if you look at Wim can stay in ice for a couple of hours. And the reason is he's got about a 70% coverage of brown fat. Okay, we're all born with this brown fat, but we lose it over time and as we get older, because we live in a warm environment. We wear lots of warm clothes. Our central heating's on all the time. We get up in the morning, the heat's on. We get into the car, we turn the heat on. We go to the office, the heat's on. So we lose this layer. As we get older, we lose this layer of brown fat. But because Wim's getting in and out of the cold every day since he's about 12, he has about 70% coverage of this brown fat. And this brown fat can generate, and brown fat, it actually, it speeds up your metabolism. You actually eat white fat. So it's a great way to lose weight, get in and out of the cold, but I don't think it'll catch on as a weight loss program, but you definitely will lose weight.
Not too many people will be keen on regularly and continuously jumping into, whether it be the sea, which I'm a firm believer of, or even the ice baths. It is a difficult thing, but I suppose even just to further touch on that brilliant benefit of the cold water exposure, improving your white blood cell count, and that's to do improving your immune system, which is really key for, I suppose, things right now that can be used. Yeah. Because a lot of people talk about how to, I suppose, take vaccines and things like that, but reading further back, we want to prevent the likes of any of these chronic illnesses being occurring in the first place. Improving your immune system from day one, from such simple things as grounding and the likes of the breath work with your cold water exposure, is something that is an amazing fact that's not mentioned enough on either social media or any of the platforms for that matter.
No, it's not. No, and it's actually simple. It's not difficult, and this should be promoted. You know that if you eat well and eat clean, get yourself in touch with nature, basically. So ground yourself, learn how to do a few different types of breathing techniques, and expose yourself to the cold every now and again. Instead of staying in a comfortable, warm environment, that's actually not good for you. Expose yourself to something extreme. Heat as well. Heat has benefits too, so saunas and stuff, but also the cold. That's actually good for us. It's the way our bodies have been designed, but too many of us live in too comfortable surroundings. Now, I'm not saying I don't like the heat. I like the heat. I like to lie on the beach just like anyone else, but I will take an ice bath at least once a week. I had one yesterday evening. It was pitch black outside, out in the garden. I have it outside, and it's an amazing feeling afterwards. It's okay. I can cold, warm. It's still the same for me. I know what it's going to be like, but I know after 10 breathing, I change the way I breathe. After 10 breaths, I'll be fine. And it's just an amazing experience. And sometimes I like I said last night, it was pitch black outside and it was just lovely. Luckily enough, I live in across two fields, so nobody can see me. So, they think I was nuts.
But just touching on that point, sometimes I suppose things that are alternative are the best things for you, and not to ever worry about, I suppose, what other people think. It's just to do what you think is natural and beneficial to you. And that could be most simply, I suppose, starting a healthier food choice coming into January. And people are kind of used to often say to me, Colman, are you still eating healthy, or are you eating those foods? And I'll be kind of like, you kind of have to bite the bullet and kind of go, yes, I am, because that's something that actually helps me, and it's actually improving my cognitive function, and those benefits such as boosting your BDNF, which is your brain derived neurotropic factor, when you either cold water exposures, or you can also get it from the saunas, as you mentioned there. Like, that's actually a simple way of improving your overall health, which is your knowledge. And like I've definitely improved my overall health with these, I suppose, simple practices. And it's great that more people are doing it now on a regular basis, so they can see the advantages of it themselves. Because by trade, or whatever you want to call it, I will be dyslexic, but the definition, I suppose, of dyslexic is you learning difficulty. But doesn't mean that I can't learn things. I just learn different to other people. So I retain information much better as a result of doing cold water exposures, doing hot rooms and saunas and yogas and things like that, all boosting, I suppose, that brain derived BDNF. Google that one. I definitely recommend people check it out.
Yeah. Well, just again, as when we talk about that, like what they've discovered too is that if you take cold showers, what you actually do is you release dopamine. So there's a release of dopamine, so you feel good afterwards. Let's not offend anybody, but say before lockdown, people who went sea swimming was generally of the older age group. Okay, I don't want to offend anybody, but now everybody's doing it. We all thought they were a bit mad when they were doing it back then. They were doing it for a reason. It's because they felt good afterwards. And now everybody, since we've been the last 2 years, people have been under stress and strain, and the amount of people sea swimming now is just amazing. And that's because they feel good afterwards. So there's two things. So you're releasing dopamine. The other thing, there's a Dr. Rhonda Patrick, which you may have heard of. She does a lot of studies on heat and cold. And what they've discovered, that people who suffer from depression or ADHD or any of them sort of mental disorders have low levels of a hormone called norepinephrine. Okay, it's a hormone in the body. And they've done tests that 20 seconds in 4 degrees Celsius. Now, 4 degrees Celsius is very, very cold, but 20 seconds increases that hormone by 200%. Now, okay, the sea won't be 4 degrees Celsius. Well, it might be sometimes here, but it's generally about 7 or 8. So you stay in a bit longer. And that's, so you're increasing dopamine and you're increasing this norepinephrine. And that's why you feel so good afterwards. It's hormones that are in the body that are being released naturally, and you feel good. And as I said, it's free.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, but I suppose it's common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't that common, as they say. And when we, suppose, come into these natural, we can call it natural disasters, or any time of there's people in a panic, where do they go? They go outside, they go to nature, they go to water, the most purest thing that there is out there, followed by light. Well, in fact, the oceans are coming quite polluted, or even more so now than ever. But they go outside and they connect themselves back to the ground, and that's really important that more people do that, because right now we're living in a world where we don't ever want to leave our house or leave our comfort zone, such as the central heating is on, the warm electric blanket bed. We're going from the bed to the kitchen, to our car, to the office, back to the house, with no minimal minimal light, direct sunlight, which is important. Without light, actually, in fact, that nothing would ever live on this earth. There'd be no plants flower, the bees wouldn't be able to pollinate, wouldn't be able to make food, and we've lost connection with where, I suppose, we actually come from. We were actually designed to be outside.
Yeah, even as we talked there about connecting to the earth, people, if you had a stressful day, it's a very, very simple technique, is to go outside into your garden, take your shoes off, stand on a bit of grass, and do this sexy dance that we do in the Wim Hof. Just move, like just basically swaying and moving your arms, like Tai Chi, and just breathe in deeply and slowly. And that will definitely distress anybody. It's too simple, I think. People can't believe that just doing that will have that an effect. But when people come to the workshops terrified of the cold. They cannot believe. They'll say, listen, I'm going to scream before I get in. They never scream, because they change the way they breathe, and they're shocked and when they get out, as they always say, you're going to feel euphoric, and that's because you're going to get a shot of dopamine released from your body itself, and a shot of norepinephrine, and you'll feel great afterwards. And they're amazed by it. But as we said, it's simple, probably too simple for people.
I suppose, is there a minimum requirement of the duration of time that you have to do either the cold showers or the ice baths or the sea swims to gain these advantages that we're talking about, the boosting of your immune system?
It's a good question. Yeah. So I would take an ice bath at least once a week. You only need to stay in the ice bath 2 minutes to increase your white blood cell. Okay, so it's not long. So 2 minutes in the cold will increase your white blood cell. But what I would do a cold shower every day. If you can do that every day, you're going to get lots of all the other benefits, the dopamine and this, that, and the other. What I tell people is don't worry about time, because if you start fixating on time, you're not going to relax into the thing and your mind starts worrying about time. It's the same with the breathing when they do the breath holds. They all say, oh, I can hold my breath for a minute. I'm going to try and hold it for a minute and a half. That's the worst thing you can do. Because what happens is on the first round, you might hold your breath for a minute. Second round, you're holding your breath. And in your head, you're thinking, oh, I'd say I've nearly a minute held already. And you look at your watch, oh God, it's only 45 seconds gone. And you start panicking now, whereas you should be relaxing. And you start going into a panic. People ask those questions. I think it's the Western brain. How long should I stay in it? How cold should it be? It's the Western brain. Wim actually said it's not about that. It's about how you feel. Every day is different. You mightn't feel good someday and you're getting into the, and you can only last a lot shorter time than the day before. I'll tell you just a quick story. I've got a metal bath out in the garden, which I use for the winter time. And so there was a big thick layer of ice on it. And I said to myself, this is going to look great on Instagram. Okay, so I got my camera and I was smashing the ice with the hatchet. Prepared myself really well because I knew it was going to be cold. Got in, lay down in the ice, and it looked really good on Instagram. Okay, even if I say so myself. The following week, I was going for a walk up in the Cooley Mountains, and there's a river there that I take people into when we're doing weekend retreats. And I just got in, no preparation, no nothing. And I found it really tough. So it's different. I didn't prepare properly. My head wasn't right. I didn't do breathing techniques and I suffered badly. Yet it was warmer than the previous week where I'd had to smash ice to get into it. So it's different every day. But I would say you never go up beyond when you're feeling uncomfortable, never shiver in the shower, things like that. Never go beyond the comfort zone. It's a slow, gradual process. And at the end of the day, it's good at the beginning to see that, okay, I can hold my breath for a certain length of time. But after that, forget about time. It's all about how you feel.
I suppose it would be important to either work with a practitioner such as yourself that could help people to, I suppose, build on their confidence of getting under or in the likes of a shower, or maybe more so alignment with getting into the baths. And do you regularly host those, I suppose, those events?
Yeah. So again, just with everything's going on, I was doing them in different places around the country, but we started doing them at home. So we've a big room in one part of the house, and so we live just north of Dublin in County Louth, so a lot of people will travel that way. So but I was doing them in Kilkenny 2 weeks ago. I've done them in Galway, so I'll travel anywhere that people want me to show them. To be totally honest, I love doing the workshops. They take about 3.5, 4 hours, you know, we go through the whole science behind it. We teach them the breathing techniques. We don't like big groups. Probably about 10 people is all we take at a time. Because I just like to work in small groups. I try and do an individual thing with them to make sure that they're doing the breathing correctly. So we do them on a regular basis. I haven't set up, just finished one last weekend, and I haven't set up dates for January because we don't know what's happening, I suppose. But I will put up dates in the next day or two for the month of January, and then we'll see where it goes after that. We also do weekend retreats up in the Cooley Mountains as well, which is it's a mixture of the Wim Hof and yoga. And what we do is we combine that with a hike in the mountains, and then also getting people into a mountain river.
Brilliant. And is there accommodation provided on site, or what way does that work?
Yeah. So this is done. It's called Eagles Rock Retreat. So yeah, you stay on site. It's all vegetarian, homemade cooking. It's absolutely lovely. And Martine is the yoga teacher there, so she does the yoga and I do the Wim Hof.
Brilliant. I like that.
Yeah.
I suppose I just wanted to recap on, I suppose, the benefits of it, just I suppose a point for people to take home these messages. Again, the benefits of those, you can list out yourself there for the listeners. They were anti-inflammatory.
Yeah. So the breathing, well, both breathing and the cold produce anti-inflammatory hormones. Okay. 3 or 4 rounds of Wim Hof breathing will make your blood more alkaline. So the quickest way to alkaline the body or the blood is 3 rounds of Wim Hof breathing. The blood shoots up to 7.9 pH. It obviously comes back down afterwards. And the other thing then is you actually are producing more adrenaline, even though you're in a relaxed state. So that's just from the breath work. The cold produces anti-inflammatory hormones, increases your brown fat, and you would then get a shot of dopamine and increase in norepinephrine, which makes you feel great.
The feel-good hormones. And we all want more of them, as many as we possibly can at this moment in time. That's for sure.
Definitely. Get out into the cold and forget about everything else, because when you're in the cold, you don't think about anything else. You only think about the cold. How do we get out?
I suppose it's a way of building your self-discipline as well, and I'd be a firm believer in that. Sometimes you have to do the things that are difficult to make your life a little bit easier. And the quote that kind of comes to mind, if you do the things that are easy, your life will be hard. But if you do the things that are harder, your life will be a little bit easier.
Yeah, that sounds like a Wim Hof slogan. That's the type of things he says, cold is my new warm friend, stuff like that. You've got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and learn how to deal with them. And what we're talking about is how you deal with them is just change the way you breathe. The breath is amazing. How subtle changes have different effects. I don't know whether you've heard of Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty he's big on social media, was a Buddhist monk. And the first day in the monastery, they were teaching him how to breathe. And he asked them, why are you teaching us how to breathe? And they said, what happens when you get angry? Your breath changes. What happens when you're happy? Your breath. What happens when you're nervous? Your breath changes. The emotion you have, your breath changes. And they believe that if you can control your breath, you actually indirectly can control your emotions. So I always say to people, we've all seen Buddhist monks and they're nice and zen the whole time. And that's the way we want you in the ice bath.
That's an absolute brilliant way to, I suppose, wrap up this podcast, John. But if you tell the listeners, I suppose, your social media handles, and I'll be tagging them all up in the show notes, just there where we have you on.
All right. Well, you can follow me on Loving Oxygen, because it's all about oxygen. So I'm on Instagram, Loving Oxygen, and I'm on Facebook as well at Loving Oxygen. I do have a website, lovingoxygen.com, if you want to look at that as well.
Brilliant. Right. But as you said, I'll be putting all those in the show notes, and I always end these podcasts by saying, stay tuned, stay classy, and keep it organic. Thanks, John.
All right, cool.